If you're a man over 60, chances are someone has told you it's completely normal to wake up 3 or 4 times every night just to use the bathroom. They'll tell you it's part of getting older, that it's harmless, that it's something you just have to live with. But let me tell you something that very few people are willing to say out loud. It is not normal. It is not harmless. And you don't have to just accept it as your fate. The truth is, there's one simple habit, something you do almost every single day without realizing it, that's slowly making your prostate bigger, disrupting your sleep, and quietly stealing away your quality of life. It's not your age that's the main issue. It's this overlooked behavior. And what shocks me most is that almost nobody is warning you. Not your friends, not your family, and sadly, not even your doctor. I've spent more than 3 decades as a physician focusing on men's health, treating prostate problems, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, and everything that affects vitality as men age. I've worked with thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s, helping them reclaim their energy, their confidence, and their independence. And today, I want to do the same for you. Most men assume their prostate is getting bigger only because they're getting older. But that's not the full truth. Age may play a role, but it's not the root cause. What's really happening is that certain daily habits, small choices you make without thinking, are fueling silent inflammation in the prostate. That inflammation leads to urgency, dribbling, weak flow, and those endless bathroom trips in the middle of the night. So let's walk through the 10 hidden habits that I see over and over again in my patients. These are the behaviors that quietly make your prostate worse. And I'll also share what you can do instead, naturally, without medication or surgery. The first one sounds logical, but it actually backfires. Cutting back on water in the evening. So many men proudly tell me, "Doc, I've stopped drinking water after dinner so I don't have to get up at night." They think it's smart. But here's what really happens. When you don't drink enough water, your urine becomes more concentrated, darker, more acidic. That concentrated urine irritates your bladder lining. And when the bladder gets irritated, it sends false signals to empty, even when it's barely half full. That's why you wake up at 1 a.m., then 3 a.m., then 5 a.m., stumbling to the bathroom only to pass a small trickle. And on top of that, chronic dehydration makes inflammation worse. Without enough water, toxins aren't flushed out, tissues swell, and healing slows down. The solution isn't to stop drinking, it's to drink smarter. Sip small amounts of water consistently throughout the day. Aim for light-colored urine, which is your body's signal that you're hydrated. Then, about 90 minutes before bed, you can taper down your intake. But don't cut it off completely. Water is not your enemy. It's your ally. The second habit is sitting for too long. Our bodies were designed to move. But so many men in retirement spend hours sitting, watching TV, reading, playing cards, or scrolling on their phones. It feels harmless. But here's the problem. When you sit for long periods, you place constant pressure on the pelvic region. That pressure reduces blood flow to the prostate. Without good circulation, inflammation builds. Nutrients don't reach the tissue. Waste products don't get carried away. Over time, the prostate swells more, and the symptoms worsen. I'll never forget Frank, a retired school principal. He told me, "Doc, I earned this rest." And yes, he did. But too much stillness works against the body. When I asked him to simply stand up and stretch every 30 minutes, he was skeptical. But within 2 weeks, he was sleeping better. Within a month, he felt lighter, more energized, and more in control of his body. It's that simple. Just stand, stretch, take a few steps. Movement signals life. Stillness invites problems. The third hidden habit is caffeine overload. That warm cup of coffee in the morning feels like a small gift. And I'll be honest, I love it too. But here's what most men don't realize. Caffeine is a stimulant. It doesn't just wake up your brain, it wakes up your bladder. It increases urine production and makes your bladder muscles more active. For younger men, that's no big deal. But for men over 60 with an already sensitive prostate, it can tip the scales. One of my patients, Gary, used to drink coffee in the morning, iced tea in the afternoon, and soda at night. He thought nothing of it. But those drinks were keeping his bladder in overdrive. When I asked him to cut back to just one morning cup and switch to herbal teas later in the day, he noticed a difference almost immediately. Within 10 days, he was waking up less at night, his stream was stronger, and his confidence was back. The next habit is processed and spicy foods. Food is not just fuel, it's information. Every bite tells your body something. Processed meats like bacon, sausage, deli slices, and frozen meals send inflammatory signals. They contain preservatives, trans fats, and chemicals that make prostate swelling worse. And spicy foods, hot peppers, chili powders, sauces, directly irritate the bladder and pelvic nerves. That overstimulation makes you feel like you need to go even when you don't. One of my patients, Bill, ate bacon and eggs for breakfast, deli sandwiches for lunch, and chili for dinner. He couldn't figure out why his symptoms weren't improving, but when he swapped those meals for grilled chicken, leafy greens, nuts, and berries, he didn't just feel better physically. He said, "I feel more like myself again." That's the power of food. Another damaging habit, holding your urine for too long. A lot of men brush this off. They're stuck in traffic. They don't want to miss the end of the game. They tell themselves they can wait. But every time you resist the urge, your bladder stretches more than it should. That stretching puts direct pressure on the prostate. Over time, it causes irritation, swelling, and even nerve damage. Plus, when you don't empty fully, small amounts of urine get left behind. That leftover urine becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, leading to infections that further inflame the prostate. Tom, a retired firefighter, told me he trained himself for years to ignore the urge. But by 67, he was paying the price. Up 5 times a night. Miserable. When I explained the connection, he shook his head and said, "I wish someone had told me sooner." The lesson is simple. When your body says go, go. Don't wait. Then there's smoking, or even being around smoke. The prostate is extremely sensitive to toxins, and cigarette smoke contains thousands of them. These chemicals restrict blood flow, reduce oxygen, and trigger chronic inflammation. Over time, they damage the delicate tissues of the prostate. Even secondhand smoke is harmful. Walter, a 72-year-old patient of mine, had quit smoking 10 years earlier, but he still played poker every Friday night with friends who smoked heavily. He didn't realize that secondhand exposure was enough to keep his symptoms raging. When he finally stopped going to those smoky games, he noticed improvement within weeks. His urgency decreased, his energy returned, and he felt like the noise inside his body finally quieted down. Another destructive habit is skipping yearly prostate checkups. Men will maintain their cars with regular oil changes, but their bodies? They wait until something breaks. Henry, a 66-year-old patient, had been struggling for over a year before he came to see me. "Why?" he said. "I didn't want to know." That fear, that pride, that embarrassment. It costs men years of comfort, and sometimes their lives. A simple PSA blood test, a physical exam, maybe a rectal exam. These tools catch problems early, when they're easiest to treat. When we finally tested Henry, we caught his issue in time, and with small changes, he turned things around. But he admitted, "I wish I hadn't waited." Now let's talk about red meat. Joe, a retired Navy man, prided himself on being a steak lover. but red and processed meats are loaded with saturated fats and chemicals that fuel inflammation. For the prostate, that's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Not only does it make benign enlargement worse, but it's linked to higher risks of cancer. When Joe cut back and replaced some of his steaks with fish and beans, he felt the difference in just weeks. Next, belly fat. That soft weight around your middle isn't just sitting there quietly. Belly fat is hormonally active. It converts testosterone into estrogen, which encourages prostate growth. It also produces inflammatory chemicals that strain your entire body. Leonard, one of my patients, thought his belly was just cosmetic. But once he lost a modest amount of weight, just a few pounds, his symptoms improved. His nighttime trips decreased, his energy increased, and he felt more alive. Finally, we come to stress. This is the one most men overlook. Chronic stress doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body. High cortisol levels fuel inflammation, tighten pelvic muscles, disrupt sleep, and lower testosterone. All of this creates the perfect storm for prostate problems. Richard, one of my patients, told me, "Doc, I'm not the kind of guy who talks about stress. I just keep moving." But inside, he was carrying years of pressure. When he finally allowed himself to breathe deeply for 10 minutes a day, to walk at sunrise, to write in a journal, and to connect with friends, the change was remarkable. He began sleeping better, his urgency decreased, and he admitted, "I didn't realize how much I was holding in until I let it go." So, there you have it. The 10 most common habits that quietly make your prostate worse. Cutting back on water, sitting too long, caffeine overload, processed foods, holding urine, smoking, skipping checkups, too much red meat, belly fat, and chronic stress. Each of these might seem small on its own, but together, day after day, they build the perfect environment for your prostate to swell, your sleep to suffer, and your confidence to slip away. But here's the most important thing I want you to hear. You are not broken. You are not weak. You've just been uninformed. And now that you know the truth, you can take back control. You don't have to make massive changes overnight. Just pick one habit. Start small. Take one step forward, then another. Progress, not perfection. And before I leave you, I want to share something powerful. A simple 15-second bedtime ritual that has helped so many of my patients finally sleep through the night. It's not a pill. It's not surgery. It's a simple act of calming the body before bed. Taking a deep breath, stretching gently, and relaxing the pelvic muscles for just 15 seconds. It resets the system. And men who do this nightly report waking up less, sleeping deeper, and feeling more in control of their lives again. You're not too old. It's not too late. Your prostate is listening, and now you have the knowledge to give it what it needs.